Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Linda.
I'm Seth.
I'm Chris.
And just four of us today. We've got a few folks out, wedding plans and other types of activities. I guess as spring and summer are getting here, people are getting a little bit busier, and today was just kind of a busy day.
Wait,
for most folks.
Charles is getting married?
No.
I don't think we want to go revealing personal details of people's personal
Oh, wait,
lives
that's why I said Charles.
So, but anyway, we've got a good show. We got some very interesting topics to talk about today. We're going to talk about the new Mortal Kombat movie that's out. We want to talk about the Neevers, and I think hopefully today I'll pronounce that correctly for the whole show instead of the Neevers. Although now I'm sure I just beat myself.
You gave yourself the yips.
Yep. We're going to
There's another problem that you had that you haven't had in a while that I'm not going to mention.
No, I did almost slip earlier, just in the pre-show conversation. And then we're going to talk about Monster Hunter and the Resident Alien series, which is out. But I think before we get to any of that, we might want to just start off talking about Netflix and what's going on there. So some articles out within the past few days that I'll just read you the title here. Netflix falls on slowing subscriber growth. And so essentially the streaming giant fell nearly 7.5% on Wednesday following the company's first quarter earnings report. Though Netflix beat earnings and revenue estimates, the large drop in subscribers put a crimp on the stock. So, yeah. Ooh, and so Linda just posted an article here from Forbes. Yeah, so this is looking a little dicey for Netflix, and my understanding is that Netflix has been financing a lot of their new shows using debt instead of using like capital or whatever, and mostly that's because the interest rates on debt got reduced to zero. So I mean, why put your capital out there, right? If you can borrow money at no cost, but then, you know, if you start having issues where you start not meeting your subscriber base and your stock starts to fall, or if the economy starts to see a lot of inflation and then they start raising interest rates to kind of slow that down, then you got some issues, I think. And Chris, I think you had some comments on that you wanted to.
Yeah, I feel a part of that is a little bit overblown, especially when you talk about the subscriber rates. I think there's some valid viewpoints on Netflix using basically debt to make the content that they're doing. They took advantage of a unique situation that they're probably not the only company that's doing right now.
Right.
Using leveraging debts as opposed to taking out a capital or something like that. I guess a question that should be asked is, what are they doing with the capital that they had versus, what they took the debt out for? I'd be curious to know that. Maybe they're doing some platform updates or changes or something. But on the subscriber count specifically in that niche, I have concerns with, was the benchmark, where they missed and they fell 7%, was that just a normal correction from, the surges that occurred during the pandemic with every other subscription services out there, your Zooms, your any other meeting type service? I think that whole sector should see a fall as everyone gets back out to do whatever it is that they want to do. Now that, vaccinations are out there and we're kind of trying to move out of this pandemic life we've been living in for over the past year and a half now. So I view that as maybe a little bit of an overreaction. I think the stock ultimately be fine. I think Netflix is fine. I just think that people had expectations that, hey, they had like 20% growth in one quarter, during the pandemic, and it should just continue, and that's not realistic. It's just not long term. I would like to see what the rate was, back in 2019.
Sure.
What that would attract to based off that average versus what happened in 2020 going into 2021.
Well, Chris, ask and ye shall receive.
Hey,
Seth has the data.
Because
That.
I was actually curious, and I was like, well, what, have their numbers, but I don't have the numbers for 2021.
Yeah, and that's what I want to see. I want to see what 2021 did.
Well, I guess this year is 2021. We wouldn't have those numbers yet.
You're right. So 2020. Yeah, okay.
So yeah, you can see that in 2020 they still added like 21.9%.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell that it was a steeper increase in 2020, probably owing to the pandemic than it had been previously.
Right. So I would like to know what corrected, or what the track was pre 2020. If you take that out of the picture and it falls 7%, do they basically fall right in line to what their growth has been over the last 10 years?
Well, I mean, we can see that on the graph right here. This is 2001 through 2020. Mm-hmm. And my question is, did their according to this, their subscribers didn't drop. So they miss the goal by
they missed in 2021 their Q1 numbers or whatever saw a drop.
In subscriber increases.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that might be, I'd expect that from people getting back out. Maybe
I expect it from people getting back out, and this chart can't go to infinity. There's only so many people that can subscribe.
Exactly. Yes.
As well, so at some point, it's gonna hit a top of some sorts.
It's in my mind, it's kind of like how like a pyramid scheme or one of these whatever you call the Avon or whatever. You're supposed to recruit 3 people, and those people are supposed to recruit 3 people, and and we've seen, or the math has been done, and that cycle can only happen 14 times before you've got the entire population of the Earth.
Right.
And the same thing kind of applies here. There's only so many people who can actually subscribe to Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the number is 200 million, not a billion or whatever. But I mean, how
do you suppose at some point
the whole Earth subscribed?
Yeah. Do you suppose at some point I think there are some streaming companies that are trying to get aggressive with restricting account sharing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if companies like Netflix will start employing some of that.
I feel like that was a how do I want to say, a thing that they threw out there in the last couple of years. You had them saying hey, you can only use 2 screens or 4 screens or 5 screens on this account with your family. And then they had some YouTube TV, for example, would track your location. It would register basically whatever state your IP address came out of and stuff like that. To try and keep that kind of contained, and you could obviously just use a VPN or something like that to kind of work around that. But I feel like they wanted to go that route, and then they kind of backed off because while they can do that, I don't think I think they know they're getting to the point where, like I said, they're going to start topping off on how many more people are going to subscribe. And they just want to keep viewers, because the more people that they can have talking about their shows, it kind of starts to fill the gap for people who haven't subscribed to Netflix yet. So they also want more people watching, regardless of whether they're using a friend's account or someone else's. They want people talking about Netflix's shows, not anyone else's. So there's a give and take there. You got to find a balance.
I suppose that's true. You're still sharing, by the way, Seth. I don't know if you need to be.
Oh.
Yeah, and I see one of the financial analysis that they're talking to for this article said that he says this quarter was disappointing. There's no way around that. However, the guidance for the second quarter being even more disappointing than the first quarter is likely. But he also says, I want to remind everyone that this has happened before, many times actually. The reality is forecasting Netflix on a quarterly basis has become increasingly more challenging as the subscriber base has grown. So,
well, I mean, and you're also like with so many, they used to be the only show in town. So
thank you for showing that. So
that's interesting.
I wanted to point out this, so that this chart is perfect, because the point I was going to make is understand that while that news sounds bad for Netflix, they're still the king of streaming.
Right.
You're still so far ahead of everyone else in the industry. Everyone else is playing catch up.
Right. These are 2020 numbers.
Yeah.
See, I don't think Amazon Prime should be on there. You get that just for having Amazon Prime, and you don't have Amazon Prime for the streaming.
Yeah, it's almost like cheating. It is.
True.
But that was one of the things that a friend of ours, we were chatting with about this yesterday. Zach, he's kind of watches a lot of this stuff, and he was saying that Netflix or Amazon, he said, is really well positioned to weather any of these kinds of storms because most people are subscribing to Amazon for the shipping stuff, not necessarily for the streaming. And so he said they're a little bit more immune to swings in, whether people are staying home more watching TV or, going out and doing stuff. People are, regardless, they're still going to be on Amazon buying things, and they're still going to want that rapid delivery, and they're probably still going to subscribe to Prime if they have the money to do that. So,
I would agree with Seth on that point, though. Then, like, Amazon Prime shouldn't even be included on that list. They're not huge in doing their own content. Yes, they do have their own stuff that they put out there, but I mean, it's kind of like cheating. You're not paying really anything for it. It's not like a dedicated side streaming service that they have. So
right.
I mean, when I go to buy movies, for example, I don't expand on my Amazon Prime library. I'm a Vudu, long-term Vudu user myself.
Yeah. And
that's kind of where I put my library. I don't think to put it on Prime. I think of Prime, I can stream some shows on there. I can, if I can only find it on there, I'll buy it. But otherwise, I'm going to take my money to like Vudu for my overall movie library.
So you can see this. So this is the forecast from 2019 to 2023, according to eMarketer.
So they're going to be down by like 0.7%.
But capitalism, you don't want to be down at all.
Cry me a big old fucking river. We all had a bad year, and it ended up being a good year for Netflix.
Yeah, so that 2021 or that 2020 number, I think, ended up being in reality much higher. So this was a guess based off looks like July 2019,
right?
And it went way higher than that,
right? That was a pre-pandemic chart. So
so this is what I mean about being realistic about, what was the forecast before? You can't, with the forecast, I feel like maybe it should only be done not on a quarterly basis, but on a yearly basis, because a quarter, like they mentioned in the article, it's hard because it's not enough time. There's so many variables that can happen, whether it's a pandemic or chip shortages or whatever that impacts the market as a whole. So there's no way to have a microscopic view of long term in the market, and people will look at something in such a short time window, they can't see the grand scale of the growth or the grand scale of something sinking. You can have a really good quarter, but overall the last 5 years it's been sinking.
And I realize I'm not a businessman, so this might be bullshit for me, but maybe don't measure the success of your business in the rich people at the top getting just a little bit less money this quarter.
Right.
Oh no, the ship is sinking. We're doomed. 7% less of our billions.
Pack up the gold bars. We're leaving the country.
Yeah.
You do understand how capitalism works, right?
I do. I'm just saying that it's a little bit bullshit.
Yeah.
It is a little bit. I I don't know. I've been trying to learn a lot more about just the market in general in the past few months with crypto going on and like the market's going nuts and then crashing, the effect of the pandemic on everything. The one thing that's just pretty interesting, and then we can move on to this into something that you can watch on Prime and a couple other things. We'll get into just talk about Monster Hunter a little bit. But a lot of wealthy people too, when they see this, they take the opportunity to buy more. It's buying the dip.
Sure.
When Netflix goes down, they're like, long term, this is still going to go up another 20% in the next 5 years or something.
Right.
So when it goes, when it drops because of a poor rating or concerns over their debts, which I get it, but I mean, I think people narrowing in on Netflix is like, well, if they're doing it, there's probably every other major company out there doing it as well, taking advantage of these low interest to zero interest debts. So
kind of like that one time Warren Buffett was on the news and they were talking to him about the share price of his Berkshire Hathaway, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's way too expensive. I wouldn't be buying it now if it were me." And the price fell, and he bought like all of the as many shares as he could. So
once it goes down, it's like, well, now it's a steal. I'll just toss my money into there and do that. So, but yeah, you have to change your mentality, and not those aren't chances where you sell thinking you're going to lose all your money. That's when you double down, you buy more.
All right.
So, not financial advice.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. I think Netflix is going to be around for a while yet, so I'm maintaining my subscription for sure.
Right. Well,
yeah, I've still got my subscription's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
Next on the Galactic Driftwood Business Hour.
Yes, we're going to talk about Monster Hunter, I think. Let's just jump right into that. Now, I haven't seen that yet, but you have, Chris, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think Seth has seen it either, so.
Yeah, Monster Hunter is, and we'll dive into this a little bit more too, but you'll recognize, I think her name is Mila
Jovovich.
Yeah, Mila Jovovich. And Monster Hunter is based off a video game.
I have played the game.
Yeah.
Some of it anyway.
It's based off a video game, and historically, video game movies don't do very well, but I can give this one my thumbs up. It was pretty original for given the world that they built, and I enjoyed it. If you wanted kind of nonsense monster hunting, killing, and crazy weapons and interesting storyline, I guess. It was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. It kept me engaged pretty much from the beginning to the end.
Can you give us kind of a summary of what it's about? I mean, we know it's
it's basically, the way it starts out is this military crew, this group is out, not really on an expedition. I think maybe initially they were doing like a search party thing, and this crazy storm comes through and sweeps them into another world, if you will. Okay. And this world is not like theirs, obviously. It's not like Earth. And they come to find out very quickly it is not friendly at all. There's crazy monsters that run around, try and kill people. At first, it seems kind of like it's maybe prehistoric or something like that. And they come to find out that their weapons aren't really effective either. So they meet a native there, if you will. And from there, whoever survives, obviously Mila being one, her main character.
Is she the native they meet, or is she?
No, she's one of the military combatants that gets swept into the other world.
Gotcha.
So one of the natives that they meet is Tony Jaa. He just goes by the Hunter, but you probably recognize him from like I think he did the Bruce Lee movie a few years back.
His name sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I think he was like either Ong Bak or like one of the original Bruce Lee like history movies. But they meet him, and he's been living there for a while, and he kind of tries to show Mila the ropes. And the movie kind of goes from there and trying to figure out how to get across this desert with a gigantic monster kind of protecting it, if you will. Every time you step on the sand, it gets you. It's almost like a Tremors moment, if you will.
Okay.
They got to get to this kind of island place out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, there's Jaa. And so he trains her basically, and then they make their expedition across the desert. and try to find a way to get back home, basically.
Was he have like a jawbone weapon there?
Yeah. So this is the whole thing about Monster Hunter, and what I kind of wanted to talk about with what I know about Monster Hunter. I thought it would be so the video game is like the whole gameplay is you are a hunter in a village or a city, and you go out and you have to kill these giant monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Only to do so, you always need better equipment. So the gameplay loop is you hunt a monster, you harvest like parts, and then you make armor and better weapons from the monster parts so that you can kill bigger monsters.
I see.
And it's very skill based. Like this is something you actually have to be good at. And you'll see like here that sword is very obviously made out of a jaw or something.
Right.
And
interesting.
A new one, Monster Hunter Rise, just came out on the Switch. I got that, but I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
And
so this is that was kind of a picture that was up of a couple of guys with, some with familiar machine gun type weapons, but others with hybrid type jaw weapons and fighting some sort of flying dragon creature. So
and there's like mystical powers included in there too that you can learn to use with those weapons and whatnot. So
that native guy that Mila ran into, so was he originally from Earth as well?
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's possible for people from other worlds to end up in the same place.
Potentially, the way that they did the movie was they left a lot to mystery.
Okay,
and so this is Mila's foray into this world and her adventure in it, and then getting back home, and then if we're doing spoilers, as she gets back home, the monsters actually come back to their world too. And so it kind of sets up this it's set up for multiple movies. Much like Mila's Resident Evil series that she did was also based off a game. I was excited about this because I want to see them do a chain of these movies. I'd like to see a handful of them over the next few years, because I think they're probably cost effective to make and they're entertaining, and there's no end in what you can do with the creatures that are available in the Monster Hunter game and the characters potentially you can pull into these movies. So I think there's already content there to work with, and you can write whatever you want for the script. It doesn't have to be great.
Yeah.
Look at Resident Evil.
Yeah, Resident Evil proved that.
Yeah, Resident Evil proved that as many as they made. So I'm excited for another, B, C+ movie series for Monster Hunter. I really want to see it. So even though it's not your blockbuster, $200-300 million movie or whatever, it was still great. It was entertaining. I want to see a lot. Mila has a track record, a good one, doing these movies through Resident Evil, and they set it up to kind of maybe continue to do that. So I really hope they do.
Yeah. So both
go ahead.
Resident Evil and Monster Hunter are Capcom, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So Mila is just their go-to lady for doing these movies.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask this. So if you have these monsters coming through this portal or whatever into our world, and now they're battling these giant monsters, is this would these stories really be that much different from a typical Godzilla, King Kong type of thing, or even different from Pacific Rim, where
I think they would be, because those ones were like
those are Titans fighting each other.
Yeah, those are more Titan type movies. These creatures aren't all gigantic. There's even there's a lot. Were they spiders, like these crab-like things? Did you watch it, Seth?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, yet. So there's at night it gets crazy in the other world where she's at initially. There's these spiders things that come crawling out of the ground, and so it reminds me a little bit about like Riddick. One of the Riddick movies, you had those things that came out at night.
Yeah.
They followed a similar theme with these spiders in Monster Hunter.
I see.
And it was actually kind of like terrifying. Like you're not really sure who's gonna survive the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty drastic there.
Yeah. The monsters are more on the scale of houses,
Okay.
Like small house to like car to small house to large house size. Okay. So
not skyscraper sized.
Yeah,
not your Titans, not your skyscraper size.
Yeah, this is you kill the dragon to get its femur to beat the bigger dragon to death with the femur after you've sharpened it a bit.
Gotcha.
Pretty much. So it was entertaining. It was pretty good. And again, the way the movie ends sets it up 100% for a sequel. It's not over yet. You know, we know this world exists now.
Yeah.
The monsters have the ability to come back through that portal to you in your world, which is pretty hilarious when the towards the latter part of the movie when the military gets their first look at them, they're like, "What the crap is going on?"
I can see that.
So, yeah, it was good though overall, and she meets a team of other people that were native to that area, but again, they didn't elaborate too much. So I think there's a lot of lore, a lot of history that they can pull out through the movies, or not, or just keep throwing in people and here's the adventure of the week and kind of go from there.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, every movie you could focus on a different huge monster that they have to
eliminate.
They have to work on beating.
Yeah, and I think that was the recipe that worked well for Resident Evil. I mean, I wanted to bring up a few early on video game movies that just went nowhere. You've got your Super Mario Brothers, your Double Dragons, your Street Fighters.
Oh,
all of them that just kind of... Oh my! You remember that? Like,
I remember that the amulet that they had.
Yeah, so it
transforms them.
these old like early 90s movies. It was like if you released a movie based off a video game, they didn't have the screen technology at the time. They didn't have any of the CG stuff or graphics.
Sure.
So they kind of just went out there. They had to. I enjoyed the originality of it. Right. They have to use props for everything.
Yes. Right.
I've gone back over the last few years and watched some, and they're hot garbage. I mean, a lot of them are really bad, but
they also weren't like willing to. It's the same problem that comic book movies had then.
Yes,
that they weren't willing to really lean into the weirdness.
Yep.
So like
there was no full commitment.
Yeah, instead of like giving Mario a flower that lets him shoot fire, and everyone's like, and Mario's just like. Eat those what?
Yeah. Yep.
They give them flamethrowers, and it was like that wasn't satisfying. Whereas if you'd given him a fire flower, everyone would have been like, "Yeah, that's rad."
Yep. They could have done a thing with shrooms in there. They could have had fun with it.
Like
so, I mean, my point on this is, I hope that at some point, seeing as how they're doing a better job these days, I think Resident Evil was kind of the first good attempt in getting a reoccurring season. Like Capcom kind of figured it out. I hope that other movie studios like Nintendo and some of these other larger video game ones find the time to kind of give another go at it. It doesn't need to be a Marvel world.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be
a whole universe,
DC universe or anything like that.
Chris, you shut your mouth. I want Smash Brothers the movie. I want a Nintendo connected universe that ends in Smash Brothers.
Well, and I think you can do that, but I don't think you spend 10 movies world building it.
No, do that. Give us a good Mario movie. Give us an excellent Legend of Zelda movie. Give me a Metroid movie.
And link them all together.
Them all together. Okay, you know what? I'll give you that. You know what? The reality is I would love to see that. I really would. And they could do the same thing maybe that Marvel did, where there's one entity tying it all together in the end. There's an end credit scene and somebody alludes to something, and I think that could be pretty interesting. But I guess I'm glad to see that a modern game released in the last few years has made to the screen again, and it was actually decent. It was good. And obviously, like Seth pointed out, Mila's like Capcom's go-to for video game movies. I think they should find more characters like that enjoy that, more actors that are geeks and really love doing that kind of stuff, and drag them into these video games, because there's so much to pull from, I think, aside from comic books. I feel like we're going to get burned out on comic book stuff. How many more, Marvel, whatever movies can we watch? Avengers, DC's got their own issues. Let's just reboot things every 2 or 3 years. How about we give video games another run? And I think Monster Hunter could be the start of that. And I really hope it is.
I think they could give the Resident Evil series another run.
No.
Have you seen any of Resident Evil 7?
No. Well, hold on. What was the...
They completely rebooted the look and feel of the Resident Evil series.
Let me look at that. Hold on.
And
now, that's a movie versus the Resident Evil series that's out?
Yeah. So no, I'm talking about Resident Evil 7, the game.
The game. No, I didn't see that.
So there's the long-standing Resident Evil game series, which is kooky and corny and utterly, completely fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like if you played any of like Resident Evil 1 through 6, it's complete and pure bonker site. Like Resident Evil like starts off with the zombies in a house, and then you get to Resident Evil 2 and 3 where it's zombies in the city, and you've got this evil corporation that does and makes zombies for reasons no one knows. I'm sure someone knows. I don't. But Resident Evil, and like they're all like third person kind of survival horror experiences. Resident Evil 7, they bring the image back up though. Resident Evil 7, they took it to first person and they brought it down a lot into a lot smaller, into a smaller location, and really kind of just honed in on the horror aspect. So
what are they eating brains there? Yeah,
your character is stuck in this, is basically this guy kind of, you see, with the duct tape over his mouth, I think.
Yeah,
but that you're a guy trying to save his wife who disappeared in this swamp, and he figures out where she disappeared and goes to the house and finds this crazy family that's infected by something, because they are unkillable. There's horrible monstrosities all over their property, and it does get a little Resident Evil bonker site towards the end, but it's almost a completely different feel from past games.
So that'll be interesting then, if they do, like you mentioned, like a Resident Evil reboot based off of their new take on that kind of world.
And then you've got Resident Evil The Village that's coming out soon, which has seemingly the entire internet horny for a 9-foot tall vampire lady.
So is that a movie or another game?
It's another game. It's the next game in the series. It follows this one
that's
directly.
Hilarious. I just was trying to find it, and the first thing that came up was Resident Evil.
So how do these games compare with this Resident Alien series?
Well, I mean, they're two completely different things.
Yeah. So, do we want to talk about Resident Alien, or we still want to keep going on?
We can move on from the thing. I just wanted to kind of poke at some other video game movies out there or whatever. So Monster Hunter is one of those, and I hope that it's a long running series. They built it out to be, and it was good. It was,
Well, I mean, there was the original Mortal Kombat movie, which was bonkers and crazy and still kind of good. Like, it's one of the kind of good video game movies that came out of that era.
Yeah. And when they did the reboot for this Mortal Kombat, because I think they even came out with a sequel on that one, and that was garbage. It all kind of just went downhill.
Oh yeah, that Mortal Kombat 2, the movie, was awful.
I mean, I think they start the first 20 seconds and they kill Johnny Cage, I think, is it? Like
they killed the protagonist from the first movie.
Yeah, in like the first 20-30 seconds or something. So there's we should actually talk about that, because that was another thing that came out just this week was Mortal Kombat, another one based on video games. And I don't have too many great things to say about it.
Right.
So my issue with it was the storyline was pretty weak, and I felt Monster Hunter did a better job in this case of something that was kind of knit together. If you wanted to see a bunch of guys just kind of beat each other to death, you wanted all the gore, you wanted some flashy moves or whatever, then this is kind of the movie for you. It's I mean, 6 out of 10 on the story, 10 out of 10 on the fighting, and they did a good job on the graphics. It wasn't cheaply made. It was not. It was, made well.
I'd say a 20 out of 10 on the gore.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one part where one of the baddies kind of gets I don't know what her name was, but she had the bat wings, and one of the heroes jumps on her back and drives her down into a spinning buzzsaw sort of thing that just slices her right down the middle.
Yep.
That was gross.
I've got a friend or two that I want to show that scene to that are squeamish.
How does I haven't seen this yet. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but so Chris, how does the violence level on this compare to the latest Mortal Kombat game?
So I haven't played the latest Mortal Kombat game, but from what I've read on it, it was pretty gory. This one matches up to it. It leaves nothing on the table.
Right.
Nothing.
It's pretty horrific.
So for people who watched maybe the original Mortal Kombat and liked it for the storyline for what it is, like a Liu Kang origin story, this is none of that. This makes Raiden look like a worthless protector of Earth, and ultimately he's done nothing while what's his face, I forget the sorcerer's name. He spends every waking moment trying to destroy Earth, and he's the only one really doing anything about it, even if he's cheating. And Raiden just sits around, and at the last possible minute is like, I guess we should get some warriors together to protect the Earth and train them. Meanwhile, it's already kind of too late. Everything's already been kind of set in motion. So this had some of the sweetest Mortal Kombat. They took every little niche thing that you'd want to see out of Mortal Kombat, any of the games, special moves, finishes, all that kind of stuff, and they put it in the movie. That's what this movie was about.
Yeah, see, if you have ever followed any of the Mortal Kombat storyline, I'm going to say it again, it's 100% bunker site. Just like they mined it, they refined it, and they pressed it into discs. And when you're, I don't know how I would write a story to justify a 20 fighting tournaments of the same characters murdering each other.
I don't know. So for me, the storyline for the original Mortal Kombat movie that went out back in early 90s or whatever was honestly fine. It kind of was coherent and made sense, and it led up to why that tournament for the world's existence made sense. This one really didn't do any of that.
It seemed kind of formulaic to me.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was forced to a degree. And the movie kind of hit the ground running. Things were already happening by the time it kind of gets going. So,
well, I mean, I think you hit it on the head, though. This was a lot more about the spectacle than the story.
Yes,
right.
Which
it was
is kind of what the games are. You don't really play Mortal Kombat to learn the deep lore about the guy who has a buzzsaw for a hat.
Right.
Yeah. And in true fashion, at the end of this, they left room for more. It was a hint towards,
Johnny Cage, kind of a...
Yeah, Johnny Cage at the end there. The main guy is... so there's Liu Kang on the left. The story's not about him at all, like the original Mortal Kombat. And then his cousin to the right is like a different descendant who he can use lightning powers and everything like that. He's got the hat that I forget his name. He's got the hat he can take off and throw and slice through things or whatever. He's actually the guy that split the other baddie in half that Bill was just talking about.
He's 100% lost a finger on that hat at some point.
Probably. Yeah, so this one was more of a descendant of Scorpion story. And Scorpion kind of gets this is more of, I guess, an origin of Scorpion is kind of revealed in the end. You kind of know who the character is, but I thought maybe the main character they cast in the movie, the descendant of this guy who gets killed in the beginning, I thought maybe he was going to be Scorpion or something like that, and that this was his origin story. And it turns out he's just a descendant. So at the end of the movie, he's got to go to Hollywood to go find the next fighter.
Johnny Cage, right?
Right.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So, real important. Did this Mortal Kombat movie have a really kick-ass theme?
No.
Is it? No.
I was really disappointed in that. There was one moment where they had a hint of one of the older themes, and it went on for like 6 seconds, and then it was kind of gone.
They should have just taken that and remixed it some.
Yeah, they could have just reused it, honestly, and remixed it and called it good. No, they didn't. This movie, they focused so much on the action, and I mean the production quality. It was good. I can't discount that. It was actually visually great and stunning for a Mortal Kombat movie, and it was very well choreographed, down to the special moves, to Sub-Zero slicing someone's arm and blood coming out, and he reaches for the blood, freezes it, and then hits the guy with it. It was some pretty sweet stuff. It was gory. And then they kind of just left out some things that they could have spent some additional attention to, but it wasn't about any of that.
How do you practice a move like that? Because you got to cut someone's arm off every time you want to try out that move. And you got to figure you don't get it right on the first try. Like the first time you cut somebody's arm off and you completely miss the blood and you're just like, oh, well, they're still alive and screaming. And then the second time you get your hand through the blood, but you didn't get it cold enough. So you've just got this blood slush that you can then just splat into their chest. And you're like, well, this still needs work. And guy.
Or what if you slash a guy that's got low blood pressure and it just doesn't squirt out? He just sort of dribbles.
He's just standing there. It's like you made this harder than it had to be. And you cut my arm off.
Yeah. Yep. The nice thing is most people have two arms, so you could always try again on the other side.
There you go. Every person is 2 tries.
That's right. Yeah. So you freeze the mistake and then you start over with the other arm.
Here. Hold on. I got that. Okay. You're fine now. Other arm. Wait.
So, Bill, you and Linda watched it, right?
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about it?
I thought it was kind of formulaic. I mean, it was just it was fighting for the sake of fighting. Really, there wasn't much compelling story behind it. It's just,
you've got the whole Mortal Kombat series just right there.
It's just it's building up towards this final combat session, and in the meantime, leading up to that, there's all these combat sessions where they're trying to kill the people before the combat session.
I know.
Basically just like one long, melee experience where people are just killing each other. So, if you like that sort of thing and you want to see, some fancy moves and fancy ways of taking people out, or horrific ways of taking people out, it's great. If you're looking for some deep story and engagement,
this isn't it.
It's not.
I mean, to a certain extent, couldn't you say the same thing about Godzilla versus Kong?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not here for the deep lore. You're here to see the monkey punch the lizard.
I suppose, but I think there was more investment in the story there.
There was a little more, yeah.
I can see that.
There just wasn't much compelling dialogue in this. It was just mostly all right, bring it. I will destroy your family. I will kill all your relatives. I will take out your dog, kind of a thing. And
so in the original, I was talking about this a second ago, the original Mortal Kombat movie had has a theme to it that I have been listening to for full on 20 years because it rules.
Right.
Yes.
So
Like-
it would have been very compelling for you to have that theme.
Yeah,
In the
I
movie.
have that. I have it on. I always have it on my phone. And
Ah,
whenever I see my cats fighting, I start it up.
Mortal
Mortal Kombat! Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, there was none of that. There was a hint of, I want to say there's a hint of it like 70% of the way through the movie, because I heard a glimpse of it and I was like, oh, are they going to do it? And then they didn't.
That's a huge
There's
missed
just kind of a fizzle.
opportunity. Like, if I had had any role in this movie, I would have ground production to a halt until they made that the main theme of the
Yeah,
movie.
and I feel I don't know if that's going to be a recurring thing that we see. We touched on this a little bit, and we won't go into this rabbit hole. But I mean, Justice League, and the Zack Snyder thing, and stripping that kind of stuff out was kind of like, what are you doing? Like this is like to signal to all fans everywhere, what this is and everything, and you're just going to leave it out. And yeah, they did that with Mortal Kombat. So,
I mean, music is so important to any movie.
it is.
And when a movie like drops the ball on its music and just like goes for generic epic music or something without a clear defined theme that you can tie to the movie and its feelings,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
suffers for it. Like,
yeah, people have. There's a lot of iconic movies out there that people can hum the tunes to, or they hear it and they know exactly what it is.
yeah.
When walking away from Mortal Kombat, I have none of that. I couldn't tell you listening to a soundtrack of it what movie it was, and that's rare for me personally. It's something I cue a lot of movies off of. I can tell from like a 2-second soundbite what movie something came from.
Yeah, what would like Independence Day, like like that music that was playing when the president was giving his speech,
right?
That
Mhm.
awesome like theme that was just like makes you feel like you can do anything.
Right.
What would Star Wars be without John Williams?
Yeah.
The John Williams score for that, the Imperial March. Like, what if that was just a forgettable like background music, kind of scary?
I mean, even in Star Trek, if you look at the Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams movies,
that had
even
an
those
excellent soundtrack.
brought back the compelling original score of the original series at points throughout. So,
well, even the movies, like the first movies, like I've still got some of that Star Trek music playing in my head from the themes that they would play
right,
while they're doing the big pans of the Enterprise. Like,
or and nothing is quite as exciting to me as when you see those Klingon ships and that Klingon music starts.
Oh,
dun,
yeah,
dun,
that
dun, 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 dun,
It's like you already know. They could just pan to space and you haven't seen what's coming yet.
Right, and just hear that music.
It's the Klingons.
That's like music that you need to make part of your franchise. Like,
right.
And here's the thing. I think that may not have happened because of the lack of effort even put into the story. Where the focus was at. And I feel like when you get those themes, you actually have the story, the theme, there's some underlying character or species, race, or whatever that's tied to that, some monumental thing. And Mortal Kombat had zero opportunity for that because it was just chaos.
It seems to me like a lot of these franchises like this could benefit from a guiding person like the MCU did with guiding their franchise, their whole universe's development, where this person is like the go-to person, final say, you will have this music in there, this is how we're going to do this, how we're going to tie it into the video games and the movies and maybe a TV series or whatever, and just kind of coordinate the whole thing. And I think franchises that don't do that to their own detriment, because like Seth and you that are that familiar with the Mortal Kombat games found it not quite as fulfilling watching the movie because that music wasn't in there, right? So I think more shows would benefit from that.
Music can make or break your movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true.
I mean, who can forget the soundtrack to Attack of the Killer Tomatoes?
I don't remember.
What?
Attack
I
of
don't
the
either.
Killer
tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
All right. So we were. Do we want to move on to Resident Alien?
Yes,
Yeah, we
let's
should.
do that. So I haven't
I
seen that
just
yet.
found an
But you
article
have. Yeah.
that makes me very happy.
What's that?
Resident Alien renewed for second season on Sci-Fi. So,
Oh, is that who I think it is?
yeah,
Yes.
that's Wash.
Alan
That's what I've been
Tudyk?
telling you. That's Alan Tudyk,
Yes. All right.
who is amazing.
So he is an alien.
Yeah,
I'm just based on the fact that he looks like a human in this picture, but then in the reflection of his face in the vehicle window he's standing next to, it's obviously alien. So,
all right. So Alan Tudyk, or his character, crash lands on Earth, and he's got to recover his ship, recover his device, whose the purpose I won't tell you now.
okay.
And but in his first moments there, he's got to assume a disguise. So in the first house he comes across, he kills the guy he finds there and tosses him in the lake and assumes his form.
So
And,
he's not a peaceful alien.
can't tell you.
I actually appreciate not having the spoilers on this too, though. So
Yeah.
But I know none of you have seen this, and there are some
No.
things that I don't want to spoil, but I also really want to sell you this because
So it's really good. The acting's good. The story's good.
Alan Tudyk is so good in this because he assumes the form of a human, but he doesn't have the memories of this guy, and he doesn't know how to act like a human.
Okay.
So the first his whole first time on Earth, or his before he encounter when the very first we meet him, the town sheriff, who is super weird and I love him, comes in and says, we need your help. There's been a murder in town. And at this point, Alan Tudyk's character has had no experience in interacting with other humans. And that is basically what makes the whole show fantastic, is because he plays this character as an alien so good. It's just all his mannerisms are off slightly. All his movement is just a little bit weird, and he doesn't quite know how to drive this body.
But he knows how to speak English.
Yeah, he knows how to speak English.
Okay.
Because he learned how to speak English through watching Law and Order.
yes.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny. And this is on Paramount Plus.
I think, yeah. My cousin said
Sci-fi
that,
for sure.
Yeah, well, Paramount apparently has the sci-fi stuff.
Oh, nice.
But yes, so to everyone else, he appears human, except to one 8-year-old kid.
Oh God.
Oh,
who has the rare genetic ability to see through his disguise. And the very first time he sees him on the street, the kid freaks out. And
Okay, explain this one.
that's just the opening shot. Okay, so
Isn't
since he becomes the murder that he brought in to come solve is the town doctor, because the guy he killed is a doctor, and now he's the only doctor this small Colorado town has. So he has to maintain his cover. He has to be the doctor for this town.
Oh God.
And he's on my home planet, I was a scientist. All I must do is Google whatever it is, instant doctoring. These
That's how it
people
does.
are all so
How it works.
stupid. But yeah, but to maintain his cover, he now also has to find in addition to having to find his ship and his device, he also has to find that body that he put into the lake before somebody else finds it.
I love it.
Nice.
Yeah, there are so like the storytelling on this is so good because they like keep putting pressure on him and he does not deal well with all this pressure all the time. So since the kid sees through him and he's now the town doctor, it sets up this, okay, here you see him kind of working together, but for like the first half of the series they are bitter enemies. Just like this alien and this kid, and the kid is kind of brilliant, so they spend the first half of the series just like thwarting each other in small petty ways, and it's so much fun.
That's hilarious. I gotta watch this.
And
yeah, well,
again,
we have Paramount Plus, so we'll definitely check it out. You sold me.
And once again, Alan Tudyk is so good. Like his body and space work are amazing in this.
All right. Well, we will certainly check it out. Well, we should talk about the Neevers. So who's seen that besides Linda and I have seen it?
I've seen the first episode.
Okay.
The first couple. Yep.
Yeah, we've seen the first two. So 2 episodes are out so far, and I really like it. It's a very good story. Very interesting.
Steampunk.
Very steampunk aesthetic. Is seen throughout this. I love that little car. So there's one scene where the heroes of the series are trying to escape some bad guys in a carriage. So it takes place 1896, late 1800s, and they're escaping in a horse-drawn carriage, and the bad guys are chasing after them, and the bad guys are gaining on them. They're chasing them on horseback, and they get close enough where one guy jumps onto the carriage and grabs at the guy driving the carriage and pulls off his cape and his hood or whatever, and you can see it's just like a robotic man.
It's not a guy at all.
It's not a guy at all. It's like this.
It's not even really a robot. It's just like a frame of a guy.
Right. And meanwhile, inside the carriage, there's three women in there. So the 2 heroines that kind of run this special orphanage, I guess.
Orphanage thing,
yeah, orphanage for these women that are what they call touched. And I'll explain that in a little bit.
Afflicted, if you're being rude.
Right, we're afflicted, and then one of the a new girl that they've just encountered, who is they realize one of the touched. And so they're basically rescuing her, and so they're in this carriage, and they decide that they need to escape, and so they mentioned to the one lady there that they need to activate this escape vehicle or whatever, and she says, well, it's just a prototype. But anyway, Linda's brought up a picture there. So suddenly, these horsemen are just attacking the carriage, you see out of the back of the carriage shoots this very steampunk vehicle. It's like a battery powered type of tricycle, really. It's a kind of, if you imagine a tadpole tricycle with the 2 wheels up front and the driving wheel in the rear, and they're kind of sitting in this open carriage. I mean, there's no roof or bonnet over the top of it. They're just sitting in this open carriage, and it's got some sort of a fantastical steampunk type
control driving
motor. She's got handles where she steers it with these handles, but then the front of it has this brass kind of a thing that appears to be generating the electrical power to drive the vehicle, and it just shoots out of the back, and they use that to escape in. So
the guys chasing were like, the fuck?
Yeah. What was that? And it's really cool. So they run this orphanage. These women are called Touched, and we find out that these women have been exposed to these little balls of light, and
not only
balls of
women,
light
though.
kind of rain down from the sky.
Yeah, well, you come to find out it's not just women, right?
Right. It's mostly women, but there are a few men that are touched as well that we've seen. And as you become touched by one of these balls, you develop some sort of a power. One woman just has the power to break things with her mind. Another one will cast fireballs. Another one
That looked rad.
Yes. Another one can sing, and she sings this song that only the other touched people can hear, and it has a very calming influence on them.
But it also reveals them.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And
maybe not to non-touched people, but
yeah, I don't think the non-touched people could see
people
it.
could see it though. Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't see it, and they couldn't hear the song, which is interesting, right?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah,
was,
I don't think we've seen enough to know whether.
Yeah,
non-touched
everyone was.
He said only the touch people could hear the song.
Running from the theater at the time, so
yeah. Although that one snooty Lord, what's his name, Mason?
Snooty?
He was
Frumple Butts.
Yeah, he's kind of a.
Let me try again.
He's kind of a pain in the butt, but anyway, he kind of was there at the very end at the theater. He was like the last one to leave, and he was watching what was going on, but it was obvious that he couldn't hear the song because he had this confused look on his face, like what's going on. And he saw all the other people sitting there, and we could see this stream of light energy going between the person singing the song and all of the touch that were left just kind of dazed sitting in the audience. And but we don't know if he could see the light, and my suspicion is he couldn't, because he hasn't mentioned that so far as being a way of seeing all these other touch. But
there's Rumplebuds.
Yeah,
there he is. Yeah,
it's worth noting. So the particle stuff that came from the sky, you learn through one of the main heroes. Her ability is to basically see things before they happen, kind of. And through one of her, I think it was her flashback, but it basically showed what happened the day this all started, and some spaceship kind of came into the sky, and as it flew across the town, all these particles kind of got released, and it cuts to different scenes of a lot of different key important characters, where they were at the time when this happened. It kind of shows that these particles kind of flowed into them, and then they've been touched. Presumably from there, they either knew immediately about their powers, or they kind of figured it out as they went.
Right.
Yeah.
And I found it very interesting that this alien spacecraft, it was very Jules Verne-ish in appearance to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I looked at it, it made me think that, okay, this is not a spacecraft from another world or an alien intelligence. Maybe there's somebody on the planet that has designed this using 18th century technology, and they found a way to release this stuff and transform people. So
I like that idea.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's going to bear out, or if, when or if we'll find out if that's the case. But I thought that might be an interesting development if that were true.
So, do we know if London is the only city where this has happened?
Not yet.
We don't know that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you learn a little more on the touched in the second episode, but the origins of where all this started is still kind of unfolding. So they haven't got. Maybe I think there's another episode tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you may know more tonight.
And the other thing that was interesting was that as this spacecraft flew through the sky, all the Londoners looked up and were, dumbfounded. Some fell to their knees watching it because they, didn't know what they were seeing. And others were just watching it with a look of amazed astonishment on their face. Mm-hmm. And as these light balls fell on them, and then after the ship disappeared from view, everybody picked up and went about their lives as if nothing had happened. Yeah. Yep.
So that was very peculiar.
Yeah, very peculiar. So it'll be interesting to learn more about that aspect. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a very good show. Very well acted. The storyline's really good and compelling. Mm-hmm. I love the what was the one bad guy that got in the coach to talk to him? The Beggar King.
Oh yeah, Nick
right.
Frost.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
Yeah,
so
it was.
The Beggar King kind of is a ne'er-do-well kind of a king of the baddies, I guess, runs the underworld in this world of London, and he's the one that kind of gives the tip off to the people running the orphanage about new people that are touched that might need their assistance. But at the same,
giving that info to someone else,
right? At the same rate, he may be giving that information to someone else. We just don't know yet. So, anyway, he's one of the people that the people running the orphanage have to deal with, and he was kind of a pretty funny character. I want to see more of him.
There were some other funny scenes too that happened in the second one. You meet in the second episode, and I won't spoil much for you, Seth, but you'll meet a woman who compels you to tell the truth, basically.
Oh yes,
I love those characters.
And there's some funny moments how they wrapped around that, and then you also get a really good plot twist in the end of the episode, and you start to see who the really good people are and who the people are you really shouldn't trust anymore. So
right.
There's definitely some good things that happen in episode 2. They continue building on that storyline, but it kept the humor there, really good action. You really get the sense of more character building a little bit on the main heroes, why maybe they are the way they are, and things like that. So
yeah. And I do like that. I do like that world they've created in the 18th century. You know, it's especially, I think it was the second episode that Seth hasn't seen yet, where they go to that party at what's that woman's name that's in the wheelchair?
Lavinia,
Lavinia or something like that. Yeah. They go to her estate, so she's trying to, in a sense, humanize the touched amongst the elite of London. So she's the one that actually finances the running of the orphanage. And so she invites a few of the touched over to her place to meet with the elite of London, because there are a few of the touched that are baddies. Malady is the leader of the baddies, I guess. And so she appears at an opera and ends up, it's an opera of Faust, and she ends up slitting the throat of the actor playing the devil and causes all sorts of mayhem in the theater. We kind of alluded to that earlier.
Performance though.
Yeah, really good. And anyway, so this woman that's financing the orphanage, she invites some of the more acceptable members of the touched group to come in and just sort of, show their talents. Now, there was a part of that bothered me, in that when they all get there, they're forced to wear ribbons to mark them as being touched. And that sort of brought to mind, Jews in Nazi Germany being forced to wear those, Star of David things on their outfits. So, and there was on Netflix, they've got a bunch of different shorts you can watch that are, information on some backgrounds of some of the characters. And so there was a one on this lady, Lavinia or whatever, that's running, that's financing.
HBO Max?
Yes. What'd I say?
Netflix.
Oh yeah. Sorry. HBO Max.
I was like, why would they have information on this on Netflix?
Yeah. They're trying to branch out. But anyway, so it was interesting watching the short, because it's the actor talking about their character and stuff. And she said, she holds this politically incorrect event as a way of showcasing these touched,
Bidlow.
What's that?
Lavinia Bidlow is that woman?
Oh, that's her name. Right. And, the other thing that's interesting is that, you see this woman in the first episode, and even in the first part of episode 2, and she's all seems to be this caring person that's financing this orphanage and all this kind of stuff. But then during the party, her brother, I guess, who
is it her brother or son?
No, I think it's her brother.
I thought it was her son.
But anyway,
Yeah,
he is
gets
attracted.
Hmm?
He's attracted to one member of the Touched,
Yeah.
this lady, and
very awkwardly so.
Yes.
yeah, and they start to hit it off at this party event, and after they separate, Lavinia Bidlow confronts him and said, you're not smart enough to carry on an illicit affair, and there is no way that we're going to have a member of the Touched as a member of this family and have the Bidlow name. So she's, very,
Which is,
what's that?
I was going to say, which is ironic because in the first episode, we see him get like 5 of those little motes of light go into him.
Right. And so we find out in the second episode, of course, that he is touched, because we see in the first episode him also sitting in that theater, that opera theater, and
he hears the music.
He hears the music, and you see the light rays coming from him. So we find out in the second episode what his power is, and it's a very interesting power. It's very cool, actually.
So, like, what I thought one of the things I thought was interesting from that opera scene is just like how many members of the audience, when she starts singing, just like how many members of the audience light up.
Right.
Indicates that the Touched are not rare in London. They're kind of a significant percentage of the population.
So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds, because there's definitely some people in the crowd that that haven't been talked about yet or anything like that. They were just normal people,
appearingly normal.
Right. Well, apparently, like, people's abilities are still awakening, so you've probably still got a lot of the Touched who are dormant and haven't presented with their powers yet.
Right. Well, and that Italian lady's powers that worked in that shop. I can't remember if that was in the first episode.
That's in the
second episode. Yeah. So she's working there. She's just a commoner working in this shop where these elite of London go to buy fancy hats or costumes or
like
whatever.
A department store.
Yeah, right. And so we end up finding out that she's a member of the Touched and what her power is. And unfortunately, she has a not so good outcome. We find out that there's another group. I mentioned earlier, I alluded to the fact that the carriage that transformed into this motor car was being chased by these baddies. And it turns out that these baddies are also trying to collect the Touched, but not for any altruistic purposes, for their own evil intents to try to figure out how this power is created. So
it looked like the baddies were like, they were all like scarred and whatnot.
Right.
And we saw at the end of the first episode this mad scientist who was basically experimenting on them. So I'm guessing that they're not
more on that in the second episode.
Right. You'll see more of that mad scientist in the second episode. So
hey, mad scientist, I'm in. I may not look like one anymore, but
yeah, so that's good. Well, let's see. We're getting close to our time here. I think we've got maybe just enough time to kind of talk about that Pentagon video that got released recently, showing some images of a strange pulsating sort of a cube shape that was hovering over the deck of a warship at night, and they got some night vision footage of it.
When was it from?
What's that?
When was the footage supposed to be from?
I can't tell you that. I would have to look that up. But if you look up,
I can't tell you that. I'd have to kill you.
Yes. You should be able to find that if you do a Google search for, Pentagon warship, UFO kind of a thing, or maybe Linda can find it while we're chatting about it. But anyway, they showed that, and I think they had maybe one or two other little video clips that showed some very interesting footage, not easily explained away, of something that appeared to be certainly technologies or craft that we do not appear to have the ability to create at this time. So, as part of that release of that, and this was covered on the Today Show. They also had an interview with one of the guys at the Pentagon that was releasing this footage, and he mentioned that this footage that has been publicly released is the least compelling footage that they have available. So that indicates that there's stuff that they've got, recordings or videos or whatever, that really sort of makes this a lot more interesting, and probably a lot more, or would generate a lot more discussion if this information was released. And, I'm not really sure why they released this at this time. It's kind of interesting. But they said they apparently don't know what it is. They can't explain it either. But there's a lot of discussion. Of course, discussion boards for UFO groups and whatever are just going crazy with all of this information.
So how much is it possible that we just believe we don't have the tech, as the U.S. and some other country is sending spy ships over, that we can't explain or can't identify? And it's not for lack of belief, just viewing it from another angle is, is it our arrogance that says no one has that capability, that, we can't identify it? So by definition, it doesn't necessarily mean like alien or anything. It just it's unidentified. We can't identify it. But
yeah, and that kind of occurred to me, but there's a part of me that says if tech like this is available, my guess would be that at a minimum, the U.S. would know about it or have some information on it, and probably be developing it themselves, and wouldn't be releasing this footage and saying, well, here this is for what it's worth. We can't really explain it. It would be more classified, I think, maybe, if we had the technology.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But to your point, we assume that we would know. I guess we always assume we're the smartest one in the room, right?
Sure, I know.
In these nations and stuff. So I take it with a little bit of skepticism, but at the same time, we've seen videos of things that have movements that really can't be explained, especially when you see it in motion as opposed to just a photo.
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense at all. But we're basing it off of things that we know, not that we don't. So
right.
It's interesting. If you're going to release something, just release everything, to me.
Here's the thing that bothers me. The alleged photo was reportedly captured from within the cockpit of an FA-18 fighter jet with a pilot's personal cell phone. Now, we can't drive and talk.
But
you're telling me you can be up in the air?
This guy's flying an F-18 and he's on his cell phone?
Well, look, it's not like you're on a crowded interstate up there, right? You could easily drift over the lines in the air.
Crash because of texting while flying.
They don't have other cameras, though, in the
No, I think they do have cameras in the cockpits that can view all the directions and stuff.
Yeah.
But
so why are they releasing the cell phone that the guy took?
Exactly.
Surely they would have had other high definition,
They probably do.
Then why release the grainy one?
Probably because that's what they're holding back. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they both said they have more compelling evidence. Maybe that's what they have.
It's like why are they why don't you release all the compelling evidence?
Yeah, that's what I would say. I was
releasing something.
If you're gonna release anything, yeah.
This is the least compelling. Well, give us the more compelling. What are you guys trying to tell us right now? Are you just fun?
Yeah. Well, there may be a reason for that we don't know. Maybe the more compelling footage is interesting from an analysis perspective in trying to figure it out, and maybe they're still trying to do that with teams and they don't want to release that to potential adversaries. Maybe they think there's some sort of intelligence value in keeping the details of that information secret. I just don't understand why they would have released any of it. It's not like there was some Freedom of Information Act that was put out there.
No, unless it was to get out because somebody got the information that wasn't supposed to. They could also be beating it and releasing it from yourself as opposed to admitting that somehow someone got that information out there that wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, but we're also talking about UFO footage. Like, if like someone got that particular video that wasn't supposed to have it, but they're releasing it, like UFO footage gets released all the time and is faked quite a bunch of it.
I would be interested to know what footage comes from other countries' military forces that has been released and stuff like that, because this, I doubt this phenomena is something that only happens on our end of the world.
Right.
I'd be curious to know what's
they just released a picture. This is probably what the other pictures look like. Resident alien.
Right.
Probably.
So,
well, I think it might be interesting if we were to look into this a little bit more and see what sort of footage might have been released by other militaries around the world. I know I've seen some UFO documentaries, in quotes, on like Netflix or whatever, that talk about UFOs and alien abductions, things like that, which is entertaining, but there's not really a lot of compelling evidence in there, of course. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, but that may lead to some information where some other militaries might have released some stuff. Maybe we can do a little research on that and see if maybe there's something else out there or some other reason for the release of this information at this time that might be interesting to discuss on our next show.
Yeah. My question is, why is the only evidence we have of this so far these videos, these badly shot video? Why is this the only evidence? Why don't we have...
Right. Especially in the day of more advanced cell phone cameras, you'd think the number of compelling videos of UFOs would increase.
Right.
Well, you'd think we'd have signals from outer space or from space that we could track by this point, but we're still from everything that
and maybe that's
reporting, we're looking at a dark universe at this point still.
Yeah.
It could be that, or they're not telling us what they really know.
That's true.
Yeah,
Shocker.
But for me, conspiracies are not very convincing usually, because it's the old law of two people can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
Right.
Right.
And so if you're talking about 400 people keeping a secret, no. If you're talking about 4,000 people keeping a secret, no.
Yeah.
If you're talking about 40,000 people keeping a secret, I'm going to laugh a long time and very hard.
Well, and it's that old adage that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at this stuff at face value, the videos that were released by the Pentagon, really hard to explain away as something else, but that doesn't mean necessarily that it is something else. So I firmly believe that you have to look at all of this stuff with a very high degree of skepticism. Otherwise, you risk going down, this never-ending conspiracy rabbit hole like a lot of these QAnon folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah. So, but I think it's worthy of discussion. It's interesting, and maybe we can find out some more information. Or if you out there as listeners think you have some more information that you would like to share, or you have some suspicions as to what might be going on, let us know.
If the U.S. government, and we know you're listening right now, wants to share any more information, we ask that you choose the Galactic Driftwood Podcast as your means.
Right. Or send us a frequency and we'll tune in and listen. We have the technology, which we got from you.
Which we stole from you.
And Bill's been listening anyway.
Right. Hoping for an announcement. So, all right. Sounds good. Anything else we want to hit on before we wrap it?
No,
No, I think
That's a
that's
show.
Wrap
it.
it.
It was fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. It was a great discussion. A lot of good shows to check out there. We're going to have to get going now. I do want to check out Monster Hunter, and the Resident Alien series sounds really awesome. So, and tonight again, another episode of the Neevers. So a lot of good shows out there, a lot of good entertainment going on. So thank you all for listening. And tune in next week. Hopefully, maybe we'll have some more information on the UFO stuff. And no doubt there will be a whole river of science fiction entertainment for us to comment on as well. So,
Yeah, like, share, subscribe.
and check us out on galacticdriftwood.space.
Bye.
Until then,
Later.
have a good week. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.